Another issue that is similar insofar as, do we need it and how do we do it, is the Brightwater sewer
yes,
treatment plant
absolutely,
issue.
yeah.
Started some years ago with a list of sites. It's now been narrowed down to one, and the project has been moving forward, at least the tunneling and the outflow and all of that good stuff. So I guess first, tell us give us an update on the Brightwater project, which is led by King County, and then we'll talk through some of the hoops and obstacles.
So as your viewers probably know, the Brightwater project is a huge infrastructure investment for our region. I don't think there's any question that we needed another wastewater facility, but placing one of those, much like placing an airport or a jail, are always tremendously difficult. So before I came on the county council, it was placed at a location in Snohomish County, ironically. This was a King County proposal, and we can get to this if you want, a King County proposal that placed a wastewater treatment plant in Snohomish County, just sort of north of Woodinville for your viewers. The tunnels that are being put in essentially run along the spine, basically, of Snohomish, the border of Snohomish and King County. That's where it's running along.
Which is 205th.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And or 244th, depending
on where you're looking at it from. That's right. And the cost, I may be off a little bit, but the cost is about $1.8, $1.9 billion is the number that comes to mind right now. I think we're about $40 million over budget right now. And progress is being made. I believe the first tunnel, there's 3 tunnels that essentially are being put together. My recollection is the first tunnel is now complete, and they're proceeding with the tunneling process to complete it. I believe they want to get service up by 2011. I think I'm right on that date as well. So it's going to be coming online, if all goes well, in a couple years. So that's sort of the basics on the background of the project.
So why put a King County sewer plant in Snohomish County?
Oddly enough, you wouldn't think that would even be legal to do that. But apparently under state law, one county can exercise eminent domain in a different county under certain, I'm no expert on this, but under certain circumstances, and one of them apparently is for the ability to put a wastewater plant in. So as you might imagine, there was some resistance to that. Now, the wastewater plant does serve residents of Snohomish as well as King County. But I think the frustration that many folks felt in Snohomish County, which is completely reasonable, is, hey, why is King County coming into our county to place this wastewater treatment plant? The site so far, I believe, has worked reasonably well. No site's going to be perfect, of course. There's going to be implications no matter where you go. But so far, it seems to have worked reasonably well. A really key aspect from my end as a King County council member, I've chaired one of the budget committees the past 3 years, including our capital budget committee. And one thing we did was a big concern I had coming in, because the placement had already been done by the time I got involved with the council, was the oversight of the project, particularly on the fiscal side, the cost side of it. As I mentioned, we're about $40 million over budget right now. So the county council created a separate oversight group to monitor some real key capital projects, one of them being Brightwater. So we get quarterly reports on the progress financially of how we're doing to try and keep track of this so things don't get out of control on the cost side.
And unfortunately, the how of how King County can do that is an issue I know painfully too much about.
Absolutely. I know you're involved in that issue.
I think that, a number of, it does sort of, I think, seem odd to a number of Snohomish County residents that can happen, but it's one of the things when you want to start talking about regional planning. These artificial barriers need to be reconsidered in some cases.
What's interesting is, counties are, as you know, creatures of the state, it's often referred to, and a lot of the law that sets up county responsibilities was written, frankly, in the late 1800s. And so in my previous life as a lawyer, I used to do a lot of work for governments like King County, port districts, state of Washington. And for county work, I was often going back to these seemingly obscure laws written back in the 1800s that defined what counties can and can't do. It's always been my sense that we could perhaps use an overhaul, an examination of those laws, see do they really fit today's society? Because, of course, counties and cities were completely different entities 120 years ago than they are today. And I think that the folks who wrote those laws that many years ago could probably hardly conceive of how things would turn out in terms of how cities, our population, and counties, and how we all connect and interact.
So you've made a name for yourself as a politician. You ruffled some feathers, smoothed them out over the course of time, and I think built a name for yourself as a hard campaigner. People expect that you will not be a King County councilman for the rest of your life. You won't retire as a King County councilman. Some people have, I've read that you may be a future candidate for statewide office like Attorney General. What do you say to people who say, yeah, you're running for something, right? Or running for Attorney General?
Well, I guess I always say thanks for, thanks for thinking I would be qualified or be able to perform at a higher office. Politics is a tricky business, that I love the work that I do in the King County Council. I've been at it for 5-6 years now and feel like I'm getting comfortable with those county issues and feel like I know how to do my job well. Anytime folks ask about running for higher office, it is a little bit tricky because I have a family, a wife. We have twins that are just about to turn 1 year old, Jack and Kate, and I like coming home at a reasonable hour each night where I can spend time with my kids.
Right.
Anytime you take on a big campaign or go for a bigger office, the time demands are substantial. And I grew up in a family where my dad was home from Boeing every night at 5:20. He was there, and I saw him. He was home for the weekends. He worked hard, but he was home for his 7 kids. And I was always lucky to be very close to him as a result. So I have that experience in the back of my mind as I consider the possibility of moving on for another office. So it's always rewarding that people think I could do that kind of a job and hopefully do it well. But balancing family responsibilities with additional difficult campaigns or offices with, frankly, even more responsibility, I can't say I've got it totally worked out in my mind how to balance those out. I think everyone does the best they can with whatever their work is and their family life. And like anyone, I'm still trying to find that balance.
You mentioned earlier Congressman Adam Smith, who
Yes.
represents the Tacoma I-5 corridor up into Seattle, and his 2 small kids.
Yes.
He amazes me. For viewers that don't know, he of course represents this area, works as a member of Congress in D.C., and sleeps on a cot in his office so that he can save money, so that his kids can have a great home here in Seattle, and he comes back every weekend to spend time with his family. Amazing sacrifice.
It is, and in fact, I was involved in his very first campaign for office back when he was a 25-year-old law student at the University of Washington. His story is not unlike mine. He ran against a longtime incumbent for the state Senate. He was 25 at the time, and I got involved in this campaign. Jeff Bjornstad was his campaign manager. Jeff is now Chief of Staff to U.S. Senator Patty Murray. Jeff and I had been roommates in college, actually, and Jeff called me up and said, hey, would you help out in this campaign? So I went to work. So it was Jeff and myself and Adam Smith knocking on doors and pounding in yard signs, and Adam won that campaign, of course. That launched his career and, frankly, got Jeff started politically, and now he's Chief of Staff for Patty Murray, and that gave me my inspiration for the grassroots campaign when I ran against Cynthia Sullivan.
Yeah, I think that's a great example to young people interested in how do you get involved in politics. You first just show up.
Yes.
When someone calls, just show
That's
up.
true. It's true. And you can learn a lot. You look back on it's true that I think that the first campaign is in many ways the most memorable. That's when everything's new and exciting, and there's no money for polls. You don't know what you're doing. You're just trying to figure out as you go along. There's no room for consultants, or fundraising folks you're paying. It was literally in Adam's living room, his mom's house, in his living room is where the campaign was. We ran it from there. And every morning, Adam at 11 o'clock would head out to go doorbelling. I remember the first day I went to work for him, I said, well, when will you be back? Expecting he'd say, 1 o'clock for lunch or something. He said, well, I'll be back when it's dark. Right. And he came back when it was dark, and that went on for months, and that's how he was successful.
And slept on his mom's couch.
So that's what he's doing now. That's right. Yeah, exactly.